head into this week. Should be a judge's ruling in the next couple days on that one.
Oh, yeah. And when you have Democrats like California's Ted Lieu even pushing back, you know that fires are being lit. And we might actually have one of their state representatives on the show tomorrow to talk about this more. All right, everybody, that's where we're going to have to leave it tonight. We appreciate all of you for joining us like you do every night. Hopefully, we'll be back here tomorrow night at the same time, same place. Until then, we're handing it over to Grant Stinchfield. He's going to be on the other side of this commercial break.
Here are some of the headlines we are featuring today from your favorite news outlets at offthepress.com. A long-expected meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un appears on. There are several reports that Kim's luxury train is on the move and may take him out of North Korea for the first time in a few years. On the meeting table is a Putin wish for Kim to replenish weapon stores depleted in the Ukraine war. It's crunch time for contract talks between the UAW and the big three car makers. A strike could cost the economy $5 billion. President Biden's final press conference at the G20 in Vietnam went off the rails when he started saying weird things like, "I'm going to bed." We've got his mumbling mess. And it's been 22 years, but the 9/11 attacks that killed 3,000 are still fresh in the minds of many. For stories like these and more updates all day long from your favorite news outlets, go to offthepress.com.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Stinchfield. So today should be a national holiday, an official day of remembrance. That's what I say. 9/11 had far more impact on our lives today than so many other holidays that we celebrate. The proof that too many people forget the sacrifices and lives lost that day. There are far too many out there. We have a sitting president now who today broke a 21-year tradition to visit one of the 9/11 memorial sites, Ground Zero, the Pentagon, or even Shanksville in Pennsylvania. No, Joe Biden, this disgraceful human being, couldn't manage to get to hallowed ground today. It says to me he could care less. Listen to this excuse from his White House staff as told to Fox News' Peter Doocy.
When I asked the White House official why it is that President Biden was here and missing the 9/11 commemorations at the attack sites, the analogy that I was given is that 22 years after Pearl Harbor, U.S. presidents were not still going to visit Hawaii.
That excuse is a shameful response. So instead, Joe Biden shows up in Alaska, And my assumption is he had a 20-something-year-old write his speech. Listen to me, folks. We know what happened on 9/11. We don't need a history lesson. But he acted as if the nation had either all forgotten or never knew in the first place what 9/11 was all about.
The billowing smoke and ash that darkened the clear blue sky that September day. The shredded steel and concrete slabs that rained down from the World Trade Center. The plume of fire that shot up in the sky in Pentagon. I remember seeing as I got off the Amtrak train on my way to work in the United States Senate. The pit and through the earth in Shanksville, a testament to the unbreakable courage and resolve of the American people.
We all remember that day. You saw it getting off the train, the Amtrak. I don't believe it. I believe that story was nonsensical. Listen to me, Joe Biden. None of us watching this program will ever forget 9/11. Joe Biden's speech, it actually was insulting. His speechwriter insulted a still grieving nation, and yes, many of us still grieve 22 years later. Something unfathomable to Joe Biden, which is sad, seeing that he's lost so many loved ones close to him over the years, and yet this is how out of touch he is. He has the audacity to declare this.
And today, our intelligence community has recently assessed in a declassified memo that al-Qaeda threat from Afghanistan and Pakistan has reached a historic low.
A historic low? Old dopey Joe doesn't understand that is exactly what they were saying inside the Pentagon on December 10th, 2001. Just wasn't a threat. Well, let me give all of you a stark warning. To you, to Joe Biden, to everyone. Islamic terrorists are plotting right now. They want nothing more than to blow each and every one of us to smithereens. But they aren't focused on the now. They're only focused on success. When the time is right, the planning perfect, they will strike, and they will strike again. See, this, quote, holy war for them is generational. For Joe Biden to declare the threat of an attack carried out by an Islamic terrorist is at an historic low level is nothing short of arrogance, wishful thinking. It is delusion. But what else would we expect from a guy who's a no-show on an important day like today?
First of all, I'm glad that he won't be involved. He doesn't deserve to be. He will be, in our history, the president we're the most embarrassed of. Hopefully we will learn from him that we have to reform our system. I mean, he doesn't deserve to. He's a desecration to the memory of the people who died that day and then died after that in trying to secure our freedom, because he killed more Americans than any American president I can think of.
I am sad to report that we continue to add names to that wall of heroes, first responders who died as a result of 9/11 and those attacks. Yes, we're adding names because people are dying of cancer and other diseases from being down there in the rescue efforts. The ABC headline reads, FDNY adds 43 names to the 9/11 Memorial Wall, the second largest addition since its inception. Here we are 22 years later, and those terrorist attacks continue to kill great American heroes. One of those heroes is a guy by the name of Joe Brocy. He was a firefighter, responded to save lives, and he also responded to rescue people, recover bodies. That took its toll on him. He died of cancer this year. It was back in 2015. He was diagnosed with cancer as a result of being down there for so long, on the pile, as they called it. This is Joe Brocy before his death.
He was diagnosed with cancer 2015. At that time, it was very devastating. Didn't know which way to go. I was a little concerned. Me, family, just the whole thing was, you got a life that you figure being taken away.
His death on evil terrorists. That's why he's up on that wall. Well, joining me now is also a 9/11 first responder. He was with the FDNY for over 30 years. He's also the son of Joe that you just saw on your screen there. I'm talking about Deputy Chief assigned to Division 7 in the Bronx and elected to the Uniformed Fire Officers Association. Jim Brosi is with us. Jim, welcome to the program.
Hello, Grant. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You know, I hate to play that soundbite of your father, but he's a hero. And all the 43 names that have been on that wall. And of course, I've said everyone that died in those attacks, 3,000 plus, are heroes. Just hearing your dad there, knowing that he's on that wall now, what's this like for you?
Sad. And watching that video makes it worse. At the time he shot that video, it was at the request of the fire department medical officers, Dr. Kerry Kelly and Dr. Prezant, in hopes that he would offer some other hope to some other firefighters who were going through some significant amounts of treatment. And my father was fortunate, although diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. Upon diagnosis in 2015, he had an extremely positive attitude and some insanely good results. And because he was such a well-known figure and such a likable person, they thought that him on that video would reach the people to give them hope. And you could see how hard it was for him to do it and how sad it'd make him to say it out loud. But it resonated with a lot of people. And I'm happy that we're able to capture that moment so that we'll have it forever.
When you think of the thousands of men and women who responded to Ground Zero, the pile, as they called it back then, you were one of those guys. You worried about your health? You having problems?
I have all of the usual symptoms that most of us have from being down there. I would call them nuisance ailments: the chronic sinusitis, the acid reflux, GERD, the sleep apnea, multiple skin lesions that need to be removed from time to time. I am very grateful, based on the amount of time I spent down there, that none of them have proved to be life-threatening. I don't say I live in fear, worrying what might come, but I am diligent about taking care of myself, and I'm grateful that I work for the New York City Fire Department, and they are diligent about keeping us on a medical monitoring and regiment, so that even if we are detected, hopefully it's early, and hopefully the treatment has more success. It hasn't always been the case for many of our members, but at least we're doing something.
By no means do I want to even come close to putting myself in your category, but a lot of people don't know. I was one of the first reporters to get to Ground Zero. I was working for WNBC then. New York City is my hometown. I was working for WNBC, and I will tell you this, Jim. I was not there nearly as long because we got pushed back as you guys were. I will never forget that taste in my mouth. It was like the taste of death, Jim. And I couldn't get it out for months upon months upon months, or it felt like months. It probably was weeks. But you remember the same thing?
The smell I'll never forget. Actually, I live in Bayside, Queens, and I felt as if the stench of death would come right up the waterway. And as I would walk my dog at night, when I would come home, I could smell the same smell I smelled all day working on the pile. It is something that will stay with us forever, along with the never-ending particulate matter that floated around our heads, whether while we were working or whether we were on city buses transporting to and from what was the time Shea Stadium, just so that we could transport people in and out of the work area.
I want to play some audio traffic, and the reason why I do this is because I don't want anyone to ever forget that day. I would probably assume that there's not another show on any other network that's going to spend as much time as I do today on 9/11, 22 years later. But I think it's so important we never forget what you guys went through. And let me play that and then get your response.
Battalion 7, Ladder 15. 15. I'm going to need your firefighters out of stairway to knock down 2 fires. We got a house line stretch. You can hit the water line and knock it down, okay? All right, 7, we're coming up with 10. We're on 77 now on the B scale. Be right to you. 171, we're coming right up.
I have a hard time listening to it. You lived it. I will never forget the faces that I saw that day with an absolute look of terror on their face. I don't want to look terror in the eye like I did that day. What goes through your mind when you hear that audio traffic from that day?
I will say it's a bit of a mixed emotion. I am extremely proud that despite what they were facing, especially at the earliest part of that operation, that they were still charging up to get as close to those victims as humanly possible. And, what may seem almost insane in hindsight, it makes you proud to be part of an organization that produces this many people that are willing to go to that extreme under those types of circumstances, realistically knowing what they were taking on was more than likely going to threaten their lives in a severe way. I'm not sure they ever thought the buildings would collapse, but certainly courage beyond courage. And it is sad because I know many of those people on those radio transmissions. Many of them were icons in the fire department. We were never the same after the loss of them, but also insanely proud that the way they behaved themselves and the level of bravery they showed to the entire world, which often goes on a daily basis in the New York City Fire Department.
Jim, I've got to believe that you were a young man when that happened. You're now deputy chief in the fire department. An amazing rise inside that great department. There are rookies coming on that weren't even born on 9/11. When you tell them you were there that day, you tell them your dad's story, you've got to be one of these guys that starts to reach legend status. I imagine there's not so many guys left that are still on the force from that day.
There are certainly fewer and fewer between the ailments and the time passing. There are less and less of us. I will say I'm grateful that the next generation of firefighters are extremely interested in the traditions and the sacrifice that came before them. They are grateful for the image that we have portrayed, and they are equally eager to keep that tradition up during their own generation and their own career.
Well, I will tell you that it was an honor to be able to cover that story and watch you guys in action. And I can't believe in 22 years later I still have a hard time with this. But God bless you, Jim Brosi. God bless your father.
Grant, can I just say one more thing?
Yes.
I just like to add one more thing. My father was sick for over 8 years. He had metastatic lung cancer that went to his bladder, subsequently went to his brain. These were some of the most difficult 8 years of our lives. We were losing an icon in our lives. We were losing an icon in the fire department and an icon in our family. But I will tell you, through the funding of the World Trade Center Medical Monitoring and Treatment Program, through the Zdroger Act, my father's quality of life during that time was extremely high. His ability to enjoy that time with his family, to see the birth of his first grandson, to be able to live and not just be alive, was highly possible because of that type of treatment. Well, and we are constantly requesting more funding. The federal government just added an additional $600 million, but unfortunately, we are being overrun with the number of people afflicted, with the rising cost of cancer treatment, and we run out of money more frequently as we become further and further from the incident. When we say never forget, it's not a fire department motto. It is a motto for all the people, you, me, every civilian, every first responder, every volunteer. They cannot be forgotten because getting cancer is rough. Not having the ability for treatment is unimaginable for these people.
I will do my best to make sure that keeps up. And those kinds of stories about the help he got is really the amazing story of 9/11. There were so many unbelievable stories, so many positive stories of people doing amazing things and great organizations coming out of that horrible day that that is the bright light through all of it. But again, Jim Brosi, thank you so much for your service, your father's service. My heart is with your family on a day like today and always, my new friend. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Grant, and thanks for giving us time. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Take care.
You got it. Folks, it is tough on a day like today. So, I think I was there, and it just has such an effect on 22 years later. How could that be? But it does, because it was such an instrumental day in so many of our lives. But I mean, so many great things came out of 9/11 to make this country even stronger. And the country that it is today, even though we are battling forces that want to rip that apart. Coming up next, one of my best friends who I met just 2 days after the 9/11 attacks while he was looking for his father. That story coming up next.
Adomiro Abad,
Marie Rose Abad,
Andrew Anthony Abate,
Vincent Paul Abate,
Lawrence Christopher Abel,
Alona Abraham,
William F. Abrahamson,
Richard Anthony Aceto,
Heinrich Bernard Ackerman,
Paul Aqua Viva,
Christian Adams.
Welcome back, everybody. I urge everyone to go find the list of those who died on September 11th and read their names. You're not going to get through all 3,000 of them unless you're real committed. And if you are, God bless you for doing it. But read some of those names. Remember them. Look at their stories. There's so many websites up about their stories. These are people, you know, we talked to the firefighter and his father that were working on that pile for so long and gave up so much, including the father who lost his life now of cancer. But those are the first responders. They get a lot of attention. So many everyday citizens turned into first responders. 22 years ago, they said goodbye to their families in the morning. They thought it was just an average everyday Tuesday and a beautiful September day. And it turned into that, what you see on your screen. And I was there, and I got to learn about some of the people, and I got to hear their stories. And then, of course, you remember the tapes of people leaving messages for loved ones. Listen to this.
Sean, it's me. I just want to let you know I love you, and I'm stuck in this building in New York. There's lots of smoke, and I just wanted you to know that I love you always. At number 2 World Trade Center, right? Ladies and students in the walking, we're not ready to die, but it's getting bad.
It's hard to watch 22 years later, but I play it for you because I want you to never, ever forget. I want to thank my friend Nurse Erin for putting that up, nurseerin.org. I saw it on Instagram. I said, you know what, I'm going to play some of this. There are some people that actually managed to hold loved ones, get through to them. My very good friend's father, Ronald Fazio Sr., was on one of the high floors. Tower 2 gets his whole office out. They're telling everyone, go back. He's the leader of that office. He says, no, as the other tower is literally burning, he says, now's the time to be with your families. Go home. He gets everybody in his office downstairs, out of Tower 2 before that second plane hits. He's holding the door for others. He's the first responder at this point. Had called his wife, said, I'm safe. Second plane hits. He dies. Well, I met his son, who ended up becoming one of my absolute best friends. Outside of that horrific victim center, which I don't want anyone to ever had to experience. Their days I was there talking to these poor families that were looking for their loved ones. The flyer that my buddy was carrying with his brother, and I believe with his cousin, it was unbelievable. They had a Reese's peanut butter cup attached to it, and I thought, they have a sense of humor. If found, please feed Reese's peanut butter cups. It was his dad's favorite candy. I wrote him a letter. He read that letter at his dad's funeral. His dad was a hero. He didn't die in vain. And lo and behold, the guy becomes literally one of my all-time best friends. I'm talking about Rob Fazio, and he joins us now. He is also the founder of Hold the Door for Others, holdthedoor.com. As you know from the story, that makes a lot of sense. Rob, it's great to talk to you again.
Thanks, Grant. Thanks for making the time for having me on. I appreciate it. It means a lot.
You know, you and I have done this now almost every year for 22 years. Can you believe it's that long?
I can't believe it's that long, but I can believe that you figure out a way to get me on, whether I'm down at Ground Hero or transferring, going somewhere. Your patriotism rings very loud in my heart.
Well, your family's amazing, and really that was what really spurred our friendship, was how you responded to this tragedy. Yeah. Your dad is missing. I knew when I met you that your dad was gone. You guys had hope, and so many people did. The greatness that has come out of that day. You've got a daughter now named Reese. Maybe you could tell me that story. You've got Hold the Door. You're a psychologist. You help people deal with loss and grow from it. Everywhere I look out of that day, rising from the ashes, is just some of the most amazing stories possible. And you were there today. I imagine you got to talk to people who feel the same way.
Yeah, it is incredible. You know, seeing the towers in the beginning of the top of the program fall down was a reminder to me of how determined we were to keep my dad's legacy and to match the grief with growth. And, you know, with Hold the Door, we really strive to meet people where they are and help them heal in healthy ways and also get them to grow because surviving isn't enough. And, you know, the story of the Reese's, my daughter, is just so powerful. The 9/11 Museum does countless stories about it. It really, people around the world send us pictures leaving Reese's peanut butter cups on the memorial on my dad's name. And it's just a great reminder of, you know, everyday moments are very strong and powerful. So make them meaningful and make sure, you know, you're really connected with others because they're the ones you're going to need when things get really tough.
You know, Rob, I've always said I've covered a lot of tragedies, none as bad as 9/11, but I've covered a lot of them. And the human spirit is amazing. Talk to me about getting through those days and the years following. I mean, I would think most people would think, I don't know how I'm going to do this. My father dies in this horrific terrorist attack. Tell me about the human spirit and how you handled yourself and your family did in those following days.
For me, it was something that was inside of me, was automatic, and I feel grateful about that, where people tell stories of when I got back to northern New Jersey from Virginia. I walked in the house, rolled back my shoulders, and said, "Okay, let's figure out a way to find them." And my cousin led the charge. The human spirit's so powerful. I got a text message this morning from a Green Beret saying, "Thinking of you and proud of the way that you responded to 9/11." And coming for someone that fought in Afghanistan, his name's Steve Forty. He's become a friend. And it's just that powerful message right before the ceremony started gave me the strength I needed to look my daughters in the eyes and say, we're going to get stronger today. And the seeing the new traditions, my two daughters decided somehow they want to give Grandpa an acorn. So they walk around the memorial and they leave acorn in the water. We met a woman from our hometown, Mrs. Merkovich, who lost her husband. Another woman who my dad lent his cell phone to her husband. And the last thing that he said to her was, "I love you," and they found us. So many countless stories. And I think that what's really important is when we go back to our daily lives and we're talking about work and emails, we just forget how powerful that human connection is, but it has to be intentional. And we've got to do intentional acts of kindness because we don't know what everyone's dealing with. We've got to stockpile that kindness.
Yeah. You go every year to Ground Zero. I hadn't been back until last year. It took me 20 years to get there. I didn't want to bring myself to go. But I found tremendous peace and strength there. I thought I was going to break down into tears, and you and I have talked about this. I didn't. I was almost like, I don't know, strengthened by it all. Does the same thing happen to you when you go to Ground Zero, or is it grief?
It's both. It does. We do a good job. My wife's awesome. We take our kids and we bring them to New York City the night before, because I would be damned if my kids were going to be afraid of being in New York City. So we make it fun. We do a lot of things with them. So I go through my grief. I know I'm going to cry. I'm just very intentional about it, and I let myself grieve. And that day, for lack of better terms, it is a really big strength recharge. And I was holding my girls when the American flag came out, and I'm just holding them and just telling them we're going to be strong.
Mm-hmm. You and I, we love to give each other the business all the time. I mean, that's what best friends do. So it's tough for me on days like this where I gotta hold it in. But I gain such inspiration from you, buddy. And literally, I cry about this stuff, I think, more than you do sometimes, which is really the inspiration that you are to not just me, but all your friends. And it's one of the great things that has come out of 9/11 is my friendship with you, and I'm grateful for it.
One last thing, Grant. You mentioned about that, you cry. I think in American culture, we tend to think you're either strong or you're weak. And when I was looking for my dad, going back and forth to Virginia, looking for him, I asked one of my professors in my psych program, I said, I don't know if the strength is in crying or is focusing on looking for my dad. And he gave me the best answer. He said, Rob, it's both. And that was another reminder of human connection and strength.
Well, I'm so proud of you, your family. Your father is an absolute hero because, as I said to you that day when I met you, I'd never seen the country come together the way it did, and your father was part of that happening. It's too bad we couldn't go back to the time after that. This country's very divided. But God bless you. HoldTheDoor.com. It's a great website. I urge everyone to go see it, and you got a great family, and I appreciate you coming on, as always, for the last 21 years or so, Rob. Thank you.
All right, Grant. Love you. See you soon.
Love you too, buddy. All right, folks. It is amazing what goodness can come out of absolute tragedy. And that's kind of what you have to take away. Even what's happening in the country today, there are little bits of goodness that we see everywhere. Take that, gain strength off it, and then keep moving forward. All right, folks, the governor of New Mexico suspends gun rights in that state. Here I am talking about goodness, and this lunatic is now trying to take away Second Amendment rights. Clearly unconstitutional. Even some Democrats are now speaking out against it. We'll talk about that next.
to the fanfare.
Well, I called the governor of New Mexico a lunatic going into the break. I don't know how else to describe her. That's exactly what she is. She thinks it's okay to somehow suspend the Constitution. Of course, I'm talking about New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham. So she bans basically gun rights in the county that houses Albuquerque because of, quote, gun violence that is going on in that city. As you guys know, I don't call it gun violence. I call it people violence. Guns don't rise up on their own. And as if she thinks that it's permit holders, law-abiding citizens that are responsible for that gun violence is literally off the chain. Good news is there's a lot of liberals that are saying, whoa, you can't do this. But let me play you a clip from her just to show you how delusional she really is.
And to your point, just arrest everyone. Well, I also have to have the ability, I can't arrest everyone. There are literally too many people to arrest.
Well,
this would allow us,
if someone got a concealed carry permit in Albuquerque walking down a public street, they're not going to get arrested.
I can make the point that maybe they should be. And this is the point. I'm willing to do anything and everything within a shred of evidence-based effort.
Make the point that they should be arrested. Are you freaking kidding me? Literally, a law-abiding citizen gets a permit in her state, is walking down the street, she wants them arrested. How about the gangbanger in Albuquerque that's literally wreaking havoc on their community? But what do Democrats do? They let everybody go. They got a revolving door inside these prisons. It's repeat offenders over and over again. There's all kinds of illegal guns on the streets. They're not going after those clowns and mopes. They're going after you and me. Why? Because they despise the Constitution. Listen to her talk about it this way.
You took an oath to the Constitution. Isn't it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carry license?
With one exception, and that is if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute. There are restrictions on free speech. There are restrictions on my freedoms.
No. The Constitution is absolute. And by the way, what is it with these emergency orders? You think you can just become a dictator? I literally want to jump through the camera and shake her to wake her up. But she's not going to wake up. She's like all of them that literally want the Second Amendment just absolutely obliterated. Well, one of the most important civil rights organizations on the planet, by the way, and this is going to trigger liberals, is the National Rifle Association. You can imagine NRA members are going crazy with these comments. NRA leadership is going crazy with these comments because it's a constant battle. Well, joining me now is former congressman from Georgia and president of Liberty Guard, as well as the first vice president of the NRA, Bob Barr. That's a position, not the first vice president, but the position of first vice president. Congressman Barr is with us. Congressman, it's great to have you on the program.
It's great to be with you. Thank you. And I have to disagree with you on one point. Calling her a lunatic gives her too much credit, because a lunatic doesn't really know what they're doing. She knows what she's doing. She does it anyway. I put her in the category of being an idiot. A useful idiot to the left, but an idiot nonetheless.
All right, I'll agree with you on that. No problem there. Idiot for sure. What did you think, Congressman, when you first heard that she was going to basically suspend the Constitution in Albuquerque, New Mexico?
To be honest with you, I wasn't really surprised. This governor has a long history of making both stupid decisions as well as implementing, the degree that she can, anti-Second Amendment orders. This one, the interesting thing about this one is she basically admits that it's unconstitutional, but she says, well, I'm going to do it anyway because it's a worthwhile debate. You know, you don't suspend a fundamental constitutionally guaranteed right simply to foster a debate. I think this is going to be stricken very quickly, but unfortunately, for at least a period of time until the courts weigh in on it, hopefully the right way, it leaves the citizens of Mexico, the law-abiding ones, in a state of uncertainty with regard to protecting themselves, their businesses, and their families.
Well, look, she started September 8th. It's for 30 days. You know, the trick of the left is to institute this stuff, let them battle it out in court. And while they're battling it out in court, they're getting their way, of course. Though I thought it was great. I saw a post by the NRA today that says, hey, Governor, I want to remind you that the New Mexico Constitution has a remedy for citizens when their rights are infringed. And it was millions of dollars the state would have to pay them. There's an awful lot of concealed handgun license holders in Albuquerque that maybe ought to file a claim.
Well, I hope that they do, and we at the NRA certainly are supportive of citizen efforts in this regard, in addition to the efforts of ourselves and other firearms rights organizations. The one thing that is most confusing, perhaps, about these executive orders is the fact that even though they say at the last part of it, well, this is only going to be in effect for until October 6th. If you look at the beginning of each one of these two executive orders, they say these are emergencies that I, the governor, am declaring, and they are emergencies of unknown duration. So leaving this these in effect, the emergencies indefinitely, raises some additional concerns that must be clarified by the courts and very quickly, because you can't have these things go on indefinitely.
Well, this is what the scheme was with COVID, was to use these so-called emergencies to infringe upon our rights. No surprise there, bringing it back now, though I will say I was surprised by something that happened after this story. You had a lot of liberals and Democrats saying, this is wrong. She's infringing on the Constitution. I was blown away by this idea that this was happening. The police chief there, I believe one of the mayors in Albuquerque, and even the sheriff there says they are not going to enforce this order. Let me play a clip from you from the sheriff, cut 6.
Sheriff, what do you tell the people who are afraid now might not be able to defend themselves having their concealed carry when, you guys show up after it's already happened? So talk about that.
That's a quick answer. We're not enforcing.
There you go. Police chief said he wasn't going to enforce it. Albuquerque is a Democrat city. I don't know what political persuasion the sheriff is, but there you have it. They're not going to enforce this.
Thank goodness for sheriffs all across this country. Sheriffs are elected by the people with very few exceptions, and consistent with old English law that we inherited this concept or this principle, sheriffs are beholden to the people, not to the political authorities in a particular jurisdiction. And sheriffs, such as the one whose clip you just played there, take an oath to support the Constitution. And more sheriffs across the country, even some, for example, in California, are declaring publicly that they are not going to enforce clearly unconstitutional executive orders that are issued by these far left-wing governors. So I say thank goodness for a lot of these sheriffs across our country.
Isn't it amazing when you report to the people and not some elected lunatic or idiot, as Congressman Barr would rather define her? Congressman Barr, it's really great to have you on the program. I appreciate you weighing in on this tonight.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I urge you to support the National Rifle Association. Look, these guys are great. Near and dear to my heart. I promise you, things would be a lot worse if it wasn't for that organization. I'm a life member. You ought to be too. Go do it. All right, folks, you did the tough thing during COVID. You paid your people, pulled your business through the pandemic, and now doing the thing could qualify you for up to $26,000 per employee at covidtaxrelief.org. Guess what? These guys got me qualified. I love these guys. Government funds are available to reward companies with 2 or more employees who stayed open during COVID. That's what my trucking company did. This is not a loan, and you don't have to pay it back. The program is complicated. I know that firsthand, but they helped me through this entire process. They got CPAs and tax experts over at covidtaxrelief.org to help you through it. You pay nothing up front. They do all the work. And you share a percentage, they share a percentage of the cash you get. And it's only a small portion of that. Businesses of all types, including nonprofits and churches, can qualify, including those who took PPP loans, even if you had increases in sales. So again, doing the tough thing, let covidtaxrelief.org help you get up to $26,000 per employee. Visit covidtaxrelief.org. That's covidtaxrelief.org. All right, folks, Joe Biden embarrasses himself in Vietnam. I will show you the latest reason why Joe Biden is not fit for office. We'll run down the lowlights when we come back. weekend, Joe Biden exposes himself as a dementia-ridden patient. This guy is not fit to be president. He is a man in decline, to say the least. And quite frankly, it was embarrassing, not just for him, but for the United States of America. After his performance today of not showing up at any of the 9/11 locations, I'm disgusted with this individual. So let's just pile on tonight on Joe Biden. Clip one, he's totally confused. Roll it.
And let's see. Let's follow my orders here. Staff, does anybody haven't spoken? I ain't calling on you. I'm calling. I said I have 5 questions. Anita, BOA.
Anita from BOA, Bank of America. Why Bank of America asking questions? Where the hell's BOA? He's so confused. He doesn't know what he's doing. And then he gets grumpy about not calling on people. So you would think, okay, one mistake. But you know with Joe Biden, they don't come in ones. They don't even come in threes. They come in 6s, 7s, and 8s. This is him confusing the third world with the southern hemisphere. I don't know where he's going with this. You decide.
We talked about stability. We talked about making sure that the third world, the southern hemisphere had access to changes, had access. It wasn't confrontational at all. He came up
Thank you, everybody. This ends the press conference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
He wants out. What, is he calling Australia the third world? India? What's he talking about? Brazil? No one knows. Because no one understands where this guy's going because he doesn't understand where he's going. Look, on Air Force One, you've got a giant bed in there. You can lie down. You can sleep. Why is he jet lagged like this? That was their excuse. Oh, the man's tired. Give me a break. And then he brings up this old, remember the phrase dog-faced pony soldier? I always wondered where this ridiculous phrase came from. Well, he said it came from a John Wayne movie. Listen to this.
And they're trying to get, I think it was Apache, one of the great tribes of America, back on the reservation. And he's standing with the Union, so they're all armed, they're on their horses and their saddles. And there's 3 or 4 Indians in headdresses. And the Union soldiers basically saying, the Indians, come with me, we'll take care of it, we'll be everything will be good. And the Indian scout, the Indian looked at John Wayne and points to the Union soldier and says, he's a lion, dog-faced pony soldier.
It took him a long time to get there. Because what happens when you spend time in a nursing home is you start to ramble, okay? So the White House home for the elderly has turned into a nursing home. There's no doubt about that in my mind. So now he's rambling on and on and on about the dog-faced pony soldier. Did John Wayne really say that? I need to look into that to see if he did. Because it's actually kind of a funny line. I would use a lion, dog-faced pony soldier, if I didn't know that Joe Biden already used it. Yes, he's already used it. Watch.
You ever been to a caucus? No, you haven't. You're a lion, dog-faced pony soldier. This is a lion, dog-faced pony soldier. Lion, dog-faced pony soldier. Lion, dog-faced pony soldier.
Do you remember when he ran for president the first time around way back when? He was accused of plagiarizing all his speeches. Well, apparently, he plagiarized lion, dog-faced pony soldier. He just outed himself on his trip overseas to the G20 meeting that Xi Jinping did not show up to, by the way, because he has no respect for Joe Biden. Then there's the issue of should Joe Biden just go to bed? Okay? Should he just not do this? Well, even he says, yes, bed is probably a good thing to do.
Nobody likes having celebrated international meetings if you don't know what you want at the meeting. If you don't have a game plan. He may have a game plan. He just hasn't shared it with me. But I tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
Folks, could you imagine if I did my show like that and then just in the middle of the show said, you know what? Y'all a bunch of lying dog-faced pony soldiers, and I'm going to bed. Could you imagine? That wouldn't be a very good show. It doesn't make for a very good president either. Okay? It's embarrassing. He needs to go to bed. He needs to call it quits. Truthfully, we need to hand it to him by impeaching him. It's the only thing that needs to happen right now. He makes it clear every single day. All right, folks, when you see that and you see not just a man in decline like Joe Biden, but we see a country in decline. So what do you do to protect yourself? I say protect yourself with gold. It has stood the test of time when it comes to a portfolio protection maneuver, safety, security, privacy that only gold can offer. So how do you start collecting, hoarding gold, as I like to say? Well, my friends at Birch Gold can help you do this. You have to text America to the number 989898, America to the number 989898. My friends at Birch Gold will get in touch with you. They're great at taking a portion of your IRA and making a precious metals IRA. That's a great move. Or maybe you want to start collecting gold. Hide it in your backyard. Bury it. Put it in your gun safe. I don't care what you do with it, but start collecting it, because we are headed towards turbulent times, and gold can help you protect your portfolio. Again, the guys at Birch Gold can help. Text America to the number 989898. All right. Coming up after the break, California Governor Gavin Newsom says he's inspired by Joe Biden's performance over the last 2 years. What kind of performance is it, Gavin? His words, not mine, next.
Here are some of the headlines we are featuring today from your favorite news outlets at offthepress.com. A long-expected meeting between Russian President Vladimir